4, 5. It's lagging.
I was gonna say.
All right, I think it's coming on. I think we're live. It's it. Yeah, we're live.
Hello, welcome to the diner. I'm Nick,
I'm Trevor.
And I'm Josh.
and today we're going to be talking about the current events of the day. So, without further ado, you guys want to jump
I
in?
want to talk about the Turkey coup,
Turkey?
the military coup.
The failed military coup.
Yeah,
Right.
which might have been better if it didn't fail. What do you guys think?
For my position, I can't really comment either way. I do know that President Erdogan, if you can still really call him president at this point, and not dictator, is a very dangerous, very authoritarian leader who has clamped down on the press and clamped on a lot on the secular constitution of Turkey. So, as far as that goes into the internal politics of Turkey, I think that it would probably have been better off had the military succeeded. However, as far as U.S. interest in foreign policy is concerned, I think it's pretty difficult to know because a lot of the information about what sort of foreign policy the military leaders would have pursued is unclear.
What do you think, Trevor?
I think it was better that the coup not happened at all, just because of the destabilization effect it created.
I feel like that's generally the case with all coups.
Yeah, like if the coup fails, it's always worse. Like there's never a situation unless like your military is owned by like an insane group of people, which the Turkish army, by most standards, isn't owned by like far right or far left people. I think what I talked to a couple Turkish people, and the way they kind of framed it was that he was still checked by parliament a little bit. He had given himself a lot of power, but had his party ever fallen out of power, he wouldn't have any power as president. His power right now, he created the position of presidency. They should just have a prime minister and a parliament, and then he created a presidency and then jumped into it.
Yeah, the presidency was largely ceremonial.
Yeah,
a couple of years ago, which they had this whole referendum and all this stuff that happened at the last elections, and Erdogan essentially used those results to give him more power.
Yeah, but the thing is that had they had an election, which there's an election coming up now, I believe. Had the election happened and his party went out of power, him as president is kind of like has much less power. The parliament still has a good amount of power still, and this is just going to push it towards the authoritarianism. I think I can't think of any net positive with the coup happening though, because they seemed so lost. Like even had they succeeded, they would have been sloppy.
So let's talk about
that's true historically too. Coups succeeding.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the AKP though, his party. So their base was essentially. It's kind of interesting to know because it's generally around the more wealthier coastal regions, right? Like there's a lot of. It's a conservative industrialist party.
Right? Yeah. I mean, obviously, like
combined with social conservatism and Islamism.
I mean, if you go inland, there's a good amount of people that support him. But he has pretty good, like the South Coast. He has pretty good support there too. I think it's like obviously there's going to be a lot of opposition in Istanbul for him
because that's like very secular.
That's
city.
that's where the secular establishment and all like the intellectual people kind of live.
The interesting thing about Erdogan though is I've been reading articles about this guy for years and years and years, and it's only really in the past 5 years where seemingly the press has kind of taken a more harsher, more unfavorable opinion of him. Like he was celebrated in the West in the late 2000s. The guy was runner-up for one of the runners-up for Time Person of the Year several times. It's kind of interesting to know. And now a lot of people comparing him to Vladimir Putin in terms of his power.
I think the thing is that 5 years ago is when he started to move more in that direction, like banning alcohol sales after 10 p.m. A lot of the moves to create the presidency and strengthen it. Like his early term, he had a lot weaker power. I think also because he didn't have a strong majority, I don't think, and not as much control over his power as he does now.
What I didn't know though is I didn't when doing some research on this in the 90s was actually a lot more of a more doctrinate Islamist. But in order, when he gained power in, was it 2002, 2003?
2003, I think.
2003, he moved a lot more towards moderation. So it's like seemingly, what this kind of leads me to believe is he had always had those previous thoughts and opinions in his head. It's just now he has the power to enact them and to like create that change in his own country.
His party did that too. The party that he was in, the AKP, used to be Islamist and just became conservative.
And now they're changing back.
Yeah, because Turkey has such a like secular history, like after the Ottoman Empire fell, that being an Islamist party is just like kind of a little hard to swallow for a lot of people.
So let's talk about the military though. So in the past like 50 years since 1960,
Yeah.
there have been, I guess, 4 or 5 coups. If
Yeah,
you count the one in the late 90s.
If you, I would count it because they were successful.
It was a
technically.
referendum though, but there was no violence, if I'm correct.
Yes,
It was just,
but they succeeded in getting him to step down.
yeah, they ousted.
So in the late 90s, the military told an Islamist prime minister, like the first one ever, I think, to just drop dead. Like, we don't like what you're doing. Because the military, so the official ideology for a long time of Turkey was Kemalist, which is named after the founder of Turkey after the Ottoman Empire fell, Kemal Ataturk. And it's very much like secularization, westernization, democracy, and like a social democracy development focus. And the military legitimately feels often like it's like the defender of that. And a lot of these coups were in reaction to that. Like, you're going too far out of what Ataturk would have wanted.
But what's fascinating about this is this one failed. So that means that Erdogan is more powerful than any of these guys ever have been.
Yeah, I think Erdogan has probably more people in the military on his side to begin with, which the other guys who in the successful coups didn't have. Because this had, like, Erdogan just says weird conspiracies all the time, but this was clearly like a faction of the military.
There's a lot of weird conspiracies that are popping out. He's accusing Gulen.
Yeah.
Cutthroat game.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's accusing this somewhat Islamist preacher who's currently living in Pennsylvania as being part of the coup. I do hear supposedly that there were members of the coup that claimed to be allies of them. I think they were just trying to be pro Gulen and not actually related to them, but we don't know. 6 years ago, though, Erdogan faked his own coup.
Well, here's the funny thing: is there's a lot of people. I haven't seen this out of Turkey, but I've seen it in a lot of Western media outlets that are saying that Erdogan staged this one too in an attempt to like get more power. I don't know.
think that one's true.
I don't know about the credits of that because 168, 170
This
people
coup,
dead. That seems kind of ridiculous, but it is interesting that people are talking about that.
this coup actually has me hyped for other potential military coups. Like I'm just hoping like North Korea has a military coup, or just anywhere. Just more fun destabilization type stuff happening.
Well,
Just so we have more stuff to talk about too in the future.
I prefer not. But
Agent of Chaos.
we're in Age of Chaos, so my response to that would just be like, you picked the right time to be alive, Josh.
I don't want to destabilize a coup in the Middle East.
I want so many different just military coups everywhere.
Yeah, the thing with
We get like a campaign for it.
the other thing with the Turkish
You
coup
like Trump?
that I think was interesting is there's just so many unanswered questions. Like, their parliament got bombed repeatedly, and like we have no idea why a coup would do that unless they intended to destroy the democracy in the first place. Or like, on top of that, like, what was Erdogan thinking when he flew out of the country, tried to seek asylum in Germany, then fly back to the airport? So he was on vacation. They attacked about to attack his palace. So he flew in his jet and tried to seek asylum supposedly in Germany. And then when they
what
denied him,
changed?
supposedly I think members of his faction of the military took enough control to claim the airport. And he was able to land and give a rallying speech. And enough protesters came out at night in order to stop the military coup.
So
How do the Turkey people feel about this in general? What's the consensus?
What my friend told me, he's an accountant in Istanbul, so that's very biased because he's definitely very like on the secular side, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
He said it was basically like nobody likes Ataturk. No. Ataturk's the founder of the country.
everybody loves that.
Yeah, no, you can't hate him. Like Erdogan is basically like his nickname is like asshole. Like nobody likes him. He's a horrible human being for a lot of people. A lot of people vote him because the opposition's bad. The amount of people that support him for Islamist purposes or authoritarian purposes are
it's
sizable, but not as strong as his vote.
There were Islamist protesters in the streets that were attacking women without veils.
Yeah, it got weird. But like
Yay.
the thing is the reason why I think Erdogan succeeded is that he's a populist. He was able to get people into the street, and when he was able to get on CNN and like talk, and he said people go out in the streets, stop them in reaction to the military curfew. People went in the streets.
We should also mention that in addition to the opposition in the major cities from the secularists, there's also a giant faction of people that live in the eastern part of the country that are completely disenfranchised from the political process and aren't even allowed to speak their language in public.
Yeah, the Kurds on the east part of Turkey can't speak their language, and they're basically in a perpetual war because Turkey will never give up that land.
There is a Kurdish People's Party.
Now
I don't think they're seated.
Now with the failed coup, we know the problems arise. What do you guys think are possible resolutions?
He's gonna kill a lot of people.
Well, what do you guys think should be the resolution?
What should be the resolution? What will be the resolution?
Both.
It's hard to say what should be the resolution because I don't feel I'm well versed enough on Turkish politics to comment. I would like to see Turkey continue continue its secularized state and not move towards more Islamist policies. However, I do think that the exact opposite will happen, and Erdogan will be so emboldened and so much more powerful by this because he'll be able to discredit his rivals. His reign is pretty much, it seems, cemented without any sort of because these sorts of attacks, all they normally do is bolster the party in power. There might be further problems on the line, but it kind of seems that Erdogan is here to stay.
Yeah, he's basically cemented his rule, and his continual taking of power to the presidency will continue. Hopefully, it won't hit a critical mass where essentially Parliament is near irrelevant, and he's essentially like a super Putin, at least Putin level. But it's probably going to head towards that way. The best system for him would be to somehow lose an election. That's the best thing that could happen for him but that won't happen.
Their opposition is splintered.
Yeah, their opposition is splintered into a few different parties. It's like impossible to.
What's also interesting is, and I wish I knew more about it, but people were saying that there's a difference between the military, which is the guardians of secularism, and the police, who are generally more in favor of Erdogan and Islamist policies.
Yeah.
But how can the police stand up to the military?
The military shot a lot of police during the coup. The police came pretty strong in force for the president, and then the military did a bunch of attacks on them. I think it's because one translation said that that weird French word Germanier. It's like Germardier. Like those weird. Yeah, that's how they describe the soldiers blocking the bridge at the beginning of the coup. So maybe it's like there's different branches. I know. Yeah, I think that's how it worked out. Is that there are like different branches, and maybe this coup is more with a certain like subdivision of the army, and like the police. Maybe departments like Homeland Security. It's probably a centralized police force. He probably has his guys in charge of the Homeland Security or Interior Department, which controls all the cops. The military has its whole other system of appointing people. I'm assuming that's like how it works in a lot of countries.
So I want to talk about Islam now with the French attacks because
you want to talk about
yeah, I want to move on to that.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough.
I want to talk about that because I think that goes perfectly with the Islam thing right now with Turkey.
I
want to talk about Islam. I want to talk about Muslim doctrine and all of that.
Okay.
So what do you think about we know the motive? He screamed Allah Akbar, right? God is great when he did the terrorist attack. I've heard rumors about that.
I've heard that he was a Tunisian man. Tunisia is kind of similar to Turkey, like a very secularized for the most part country. Like I've heard of Tunisians that would never wear veils or anything. Who drink
in general.
Yeah, who they drink a good amount of them drink too, just stuff like that. I hear he radicalized very rapidly because of stuff. I don't know what specifically motivated him, but apparently, like when he got radicalized, it was very quickly. And the thing is his attack killed a lot of Muslims. So I don't know if
There's a lot that live on the French coast.
yeah, like he intentionally hit a target that would have inherently had a lot of Muslims.
A lot of
in
tourists
it.
as well.
Yeah, so I mean, he like, and the thing is like one of the worst things to do in Islam is to kill other Muslims.
Right.
So he kind of like broke a lot of rules, and French Muslims really came hard against him.
He was a new radical. He didn't know the rules.
Well, the local French Muslim community struck pretty hard against him for that.
That's good. Well, a lot of these Muslim communities in Europe, because a lot of what these ISIS members are trying to do is they're trying to ferment hatred amongst the majority. Let's say like the French people or the Belgian people or like the white European majority, which would turn the Muslims that have been in France create discrimination against them and create like foment sort of racial, ethnic, religious hatred. And they think that in theory that could turn them into more radicalized reactionary sources like ISIS. The interesting thing about this though is like a lot of it's like I think the vast majority, well, I can't say the vast majority, but Islam in France, the people that are Muslims in France are from North Africa. And they're from, for the most part, former French colonies, which have no connection to the Middle East whatsoever. And generally have been in France for generations and are more secularized. So it's interesting to see, like, how people can become radicalized in these communities, but they're also a lot, despite all this, they're very much discriminated against and confined to the banlieues and confined to French ghettos. It's like generally have much worse economic opportunities.
Yeah, the Dutch supposedly, this is from a Dutch person, so he'd be slightly biased, but he said a big issue when last time he was there is that the Dutch used to own Indonesia, and a good amount of Indonesians moved to Holland and like a couple of the port cities like Rotterdam, and like they opened a lot of restaurants, and it was kind of like Indian food in England or like Chinese food in America. So like there was a decent community set around like a lot of food restaurants and service industry and stuff. And Indonesia was already kind of a secular, like when it first became a country, it was pretty secularized. So a lot of these Indonesians got very annoyed at a lot of more radical groups started showing up because they were like, hey, like these people let us do our stuff in peace. Don't try to antagonize them.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's happening all over. I mainly blame like anti-discrimination, like creating the problem. Like I think that's how you stop the cycle. Is you get Europeans to be like, all right, this is a group of people that follow a different religion. We can't discriminate against them.
And the French are horrifically bad at that.
Literally,
because laicite, or their system of forced secularism, is pretty much just emphasis on the status quo of Europe. So it may claim to be secular, but in reality, it's very Christian and Jewish based because, like, laicite, all the public holidays that are given off, of course, the Christian and Jewish ones. In classes in the educational system, they say that you can't wear religious icons, but people wear crosses and people wear Stars of David's or yarmulkes. Well, don't call them a yarmulke, I think so. But they're not allowed to wear the veil. So it's like, it's very much deliberately set up in favor.
Tension.
Yep, it's deliberately set up in favor of the established religions in the area.
We kind of have similar problems in the U.S. with that kind of secular stuff, but
it's legal here, though. I mean, like, we do a lot better.
Actually,
I would say
we are better about it.
Like,
I think in the major cities, it's actually been said. I don't know about so much now, but 5 years ago at least, a lot of European Muslims would comment on how much more freedom they would have in the United States relative to Europe, and how much more accepting it is in, say, major cities and major areas, because you have places where you could publicly pray, or places where you could publicly, wash your hands and just like openly worship. Whereas in Europe, it doesn't exist nearly as much in the same vein. However, that might be changing because the United States is
I've heard lots of Europeans talk about Muslims, and they always say that, well, they don't get along because they're not trying to assimilate and they're not trying to pick up Western values. They come here and act hostile towards us first, and they put the onus on them. They're like, it's not our fault we're acting like dicks to them because they're acting like dicks
That's
first.
what every majority group always
Yeah,
does.
Yeah.
I
though.
think the reason why we do a lot better is, and the reason why France kind of has a secularization.
Well, we did a lot better. We don't know about
we,
that so
we
much
don't know
now.
about now, but like in general, historically a bit. But like the thing with a lot of these European countries, especially with like France secularization, is like every country in Europe, either the monarchy was the head of the church or there was the Pope. So there's a huge reaction against super centrally organized religion that kind of led to this huge push of secularization. We never really had that because like from the beginning we kind of had to like at least accept other denominations of Christianity, and then over time that got better.
What's also interesting is the image of Islam in the United States is it's very warped.
Yeah.
When, like, I think it's about a quarter to a third of Muslims in the United States are African American.
Yeah,
Like
and-
Shaquille O'Neal is Muslim, but you would never know that.
I knew that.
I didn't know that actually. I don't pay attention to players' personal lives like
Shaq's
that.
Muslim.
And I
Wow.
mean, like, there's probably got to be a huge amount of like Bengali, Indian, Pakistani, Indonesian, Malaysian. That's probably got to be like another like quarter. So like only like half the Muslims in America are probably Arab, like guesstimating.
I knew there was a lot of black Muslims though.
Yeah, it was a rallying cry.
Yeah, it was.
And it very much helped establish like a set identity in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when you said that.
Especially, but the origins of it date far back from that. I think
Yeah.
you can go back to the 1910s, 1920s, and there's
And you know,
Nation of Islam movements.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you know what? It also spread Muslims here spread through the prison population too, because that's like one of the factions you can join basically.
Yeah.
And it's easy in. It's not like becoming Jewish.
And it's more of a it's a religious creed, so it's like you're bonded from.
And if you
From
try
God,
to
you're not-
leave it, it's very dangerous too, especially in prison. So
I
you're
would
not
know
getting a lot
about
of
that.
people leaving.
Well, like yeah, if you leave any group and you're in prison now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think yeah.
But
I
that's
mean,
why Judaism doesn't spread as much because it
Can you
takes
imagine a Jewish prison game?
yeah.
it
risks
takes
development.
months to join in, and then but you can leave easily, and it's the opposite for Islamic doctrine.
What about I'm trying to think as far as the perception of it in the United States for sure has changed, especially in the 80s and 90s. The perception of Muslims in the United States was, I would say, completely neutral, and now it's
Yeah.
horrifically Islamophobic.
I mean,
but it's but
Well,
still, it's
Islam-
probably better than in Europe.
Oh yeah,
So,
easily.
I've read a lot of Islamic doctrine, and it preaches a lot of violence. So
You can say the same thing about
it's
pretty
not
much
as I've
every
read.
religious.
I've read
doctrine.
I've read multiple religious texts though, and Islam's the most violent one for sure. It's not even close. Like in terms of all of them, they preach violence. It's not a peaceful religion.
I think it's hard to say that any religion.
That's
is
why
peaceful,
it's so
but-
easy to see the terrorism coming from it though, is from Islamic
But
doctrine.
that's not
I wouldn't-
specifically from Islamic doctrine because you
Yeah.
didn't see that 100 years ago. You didn't see it 200 years
Yeah,
ago. That's the fault of the West in general.
Yeah, I think the main culprit for me is Saudi Arabia, because what happened in 79 was Mecca, the big temple, got hijacked,
Hmm.
and that kind of led to a lot of soul searching. And their kind of response, especially with the oil profits starting to come in 70s, was let's get our super strict interpretation of
The
Islam
Wahhabists.
and just build mosques everywhere in the world and just do that for a long time.
Because
And
they
then that's kind of how they were able to switch the direction of Islam in a very specific direction. If that hadn't happened,
But even before the terrorist attacks, they still had about 12 stonings a year,
it would mean like Singapore is like,
and there's videos of it constantly. Like if you went
what
on,
years are you talking about though?
like every year.
what is every
Like
year?
if you like,
And
if you,
what
hold on, if you
region
go on our
too?
Islam, hold on, if you go on our Islam, there's eloquent people defending the use of stoning as a deterrent.
If you go on our Catholicism, you have
But
people
no,
arguing for
the
the
majority of them
Crusades.
believe that.
Wait, do you really?
That's what a friend told me the other day. And I don't.
And on surveys in those countries, in the Middle East countries where Islam is huge, a lot of them will say they will not stone ever, but they condone it. 70%, the majority.
There's a lot of specific like anachronisms that you could make arguments for in like a lot of different situations, especially with the fact that it's been spread.
But we can't ignore the fact that Islam preaches violence in its texts often, and there's lots of violence.
But you're taking away the other conduits for why Islamic terrorism arises.
Well, not even talking about just terrorism.
The West has been colonialist in the Middle East.
But I wasn't even just talking about terrorism. It's violent in its own community too, in its own in-group.
Well, I mean, insofar as establishing like societies over time, you can make the argument for it's definitely a very conservative, very patriarchal society.
Yes.
However,
it's very misogynistic.
However, insofar as outside violence and insofar as terrorism and as far as in the West, I think that's definitely not a mainstream practice. And if you go back centuries, we have the West has essentially given all of these people common cause, or not common cause, but a reason to hate us. If you do not like the United States in the Middle East, if you're like the average Joe in the Middle East and you have a favorable opinion of the United States, I would be pretty damn surprised considering that we've intervened for oil, we've intervened for other resources, we've toppled governments, we have created a state filled with people who weren't there 100 years ago, taking away that sort of territory from Palestinians. And a lot of the
moderates also condone the terrorist attacks too. They
cite some sources on that.
Yeah,
I'll cite some sources in the text below once this stream ends. But it's about the same for the ones that support stoning as a deterrent.
I strongly doubt that there's like a significant portion of
in the Middle East. There is this very strong portion that support terrorist attacks.
I'm gonna need to see figures on that.
I could see. What I would have to say on this, the first part. Also, I think at some point we should go back to like Le Pen and the far right in France and go back to that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's what Josh picked the topic of for Islam, but I think in Saudi Arabia you can get that because the Saudi Arabian people tend to be a lot more conservative in their own government.
I would be very surprised if you saw that in
like
pre-war Syria, which was a secular state.
Yeah, like a lot of countries, I can't imagine that.
Or like Saddam did horrible things, but Iraq was a secularized state.
Yeah, and like Saddam was like very like nominal Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
Like he just like it was like a lapsed Catholic kind of, or like the Shah was same thing, same kind of. I mean, obviously different a little bit, but he was like not a particularly conservative or very like what a lot of people would call like Orthodox Muslim too much.
Well, Iran was very liberal before.
Yeah, like it was a really liberal state.
Mm-hmm.
He did all kinds of terrible shit. He killed all kinds of people. He never did it in the name of Islam. I don't think there were like the amount of Islamic related attacks into like the 70s is like minuscule. Or like, I mean, there were like Muslims living in India for like long, and Indonesians living forever, and like anything related to this is very recent. I think most terrorism that you can relate to in the Middle East is mainly because of like a series of ethnic conflicts relating to the divisions. I think one thing though, and you going back to your actual question, like we can't ignore it. I think the problem isn't that we can't, whatever it is. I don't know
we can't ignore that the doctrine.
The thing with the doctrine is I don't think it does anything. Like it's not productive. Like you go to like let's say you're trying to deal with Syria, you go meet Assad, and you're like Islam creates violence, regardless of whether or not I think that's true or not. It doesn't do anything. It's meaningless, or you're just going to antagonize people. I think you could say whatever you want. You're free to. I'm just saying, like, I don't know how recognizing it would do anything.
We go back to secularizing the area.
Well, how are you
we tried that. We tried that really hard.
Yeah, I know.
We failed really, really badly.
You can't impose Western notions of secularism on a society.
Well, usually only take re-educating the next generation doesn't take as long.
Yeah, that's called colonialism. Like literally,
that's completely.
But it worked. It's worked.
No, it's not.
No,
it's completely immoral.
You can conquer hearts and minds.
You shouldn't.
No, you
can't.
You can't. Yeah, many people have tried and failed. Like
The United States tried to set up a Western-style democracy in Iraq, and
That was a farce.
Well, the thing with trying to start democracies in developing countries is unless you create a system where the system has to survive, like in India, you couldn't create a Hindu
I don't
dictatorship, but everywhere else, it'll just lead to majoritarianism, and the
I
minorities
don't
just get
like
persecuted to
looking
death.
at systems of linear progress because I think that linear progress in history is one of the biggest and most stupid ideas.
It's results oriented.
Very much so. Like the fact that the United States is a democracy, I don't think that we progressed towards that because we were going to inevitably. I just think that's just what
Well, we could have
happens.
become a theocracy. Like there was a very large portion who wanted to.
I don't
be a
think we
theocracy.
could have became a theocracy.
That would have
But
been
There was a large amount of people fighting for that.
there were people
But anyway,
fighting
what I'm-
for an
what I'm
official
trying to-
religion, but a full-on ending of democracy.
what I'm trying to say is
Well, when I first started.
the West cannot impose its notions of secularism on the Middle East without disastrous results. It just ferments hatred amongst the population and the groups that are already there. And it's a rallying cry for more extreme and radical forces to push out the people that are literally trying to change the social fabric of your society. Like if a bunch of people came into the United States and want actually, it's a far right conspiracy theory that actually is happening. But like if people came into the United States and tried to impose Sharia law, you be right that people are going to resist that to the utmost ability. Hell, they've already invented an imaginary threat of it.
Yeah.
So,
Even though like, yeah, that's just a ridiculous.
so
conspiracy.
if you want to see societies in the Middle East move towards more liberal or social values, I generally don't think intervention is the answer because that just creates more hatred. I think you have to rely on the internet and globalization and further communication across societies. I mean, there's examples of people that live in the Middle East, especially the more rich elites and the more upper middle class, are being exposed to the internet and all the things the internet can provide, taking in and absorbing different ideas, being exposed to Western and other media outlets, and kind of creating their own impression of society. Or they want to like, oh, there's a lot more freedom that's coming with this sort of thought or with this sort of structure. And I would feel that if you want to move towards Western style or like individual freedoms and notions of liberty, that's the way to do it. You can't directly impose those sorts of values.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't think it's moral to do so to begin with. I think that these people should choose their own destiny as far as their culture and their society goes.
I think another thing too with all this, like especially against like the whole idea of the linear notion, is that if they do end up becoming secularized, it's gonna end up move towards a direction away from where a lot of the Wahhabist movement has kind of led a lot of people. It's gonna look different than like what we can see, like what we know of it. Like it's not gonna end up like Turkey or like a more liberal version of Tunisia. It's just gonna be they're gonna have their own system of doing it. Maybe it'll look like, I don't know, a better version like Malaysia, where like the government has this like semi-official group that issues laws saying what Muslims can do. But if you're not Muslim, or you just get around it, it's legal to buy alcohol. People make alcohol in Malaysia, and like you can eat pork
Just
because
as if there's official laws in the United States, well, not official laws, but there's laws set down from religious organizations in the United States as to what their members should do and can and cannot do.
Yeah. Although the main difference is that with the pork and alcohol, it is law in Malaysia still for their citizens. But I mean, like, if a modified version of that is probably what happened, where you still have some government agency, maybe some very separated, that still issues like religious directives, but it's going to end up like, you won't have to follow it as much, or maybe we'll remove penalties if you don't follow it, or stuff like that. I think that's if any country in the Middle East ends up going that direction at some point, it'll look more like that. It's not going to look like Turkey, because Turkey was literally like the biggest reaction ever.
That was
they were literally the caliphate when the Ottoman Empire fell. the head of the Ottoman Empire was the Caliphate.
Well,
So
well,
like
now that we're back on the coup, what was the catalyst for them trying to
Well,
use or usurp power?
Erdogan's pursuing of more Islamic policies and consolidation
it's
of
it's
personal
theorized
power.
it's theorized that the military is very much pro secular, like the Kemalist doctrine that created the modern Turkey.
But they're also
very much
against
pro.
any one individual garnering as much power as
Yeah, the military likes to
Erdogan
keep
has.
its fingers in, have a guy they can't control. That's what I think. I'm going back to what I wanted with France, though, with Le Pen. You think that she's going to make it to the first round or second
Oh,
round?
Le Pen, it's hard to say, especially since the election is about
I think about
10 months
Gotta
away.
say.
But
We got to give context to who Le Pen is and stuff.
now, our viewers know who Le Pen is.
Le Pen is the leader of the far right in France. In France, they don't do primaries
The
the
Front
way we do.
National.
They have 2 rounds. If you're the top 2 contenders in the first round, you go to the second round for the election. And Le Pen made it to the second round in 2002.
You mean the elder Le Pen?
Yes, Mr. Le Pen, not his. The current leader of the far right is the daughter of the previous leader of the far right.
Yes. But as far as her making the second round, I think she should make the second round because her personal popularity amongst a segment of the population is so powerful and so strong.
Yeah.
I don't really think Hollande has the ability to scrape through. I don't think he will make the second round.
So you think it's gonna be Sarkozy and Le Pen?
Well, I think it'll be Juppé.
Oh, that'll be great.
I don't think it'll be Sarkozy.
Oh, okay.
Or as he's referred to in the British press as a poison dwarf.
Oh wow. That's
But
harsh.
it's hard to say. I think French politics is pretty much a joke to begin with.
Oh,
But if by some unfortunate happenstance that Hollande is able to scrape through to the second round, I think Le Pen will beat Hollande.
Wow, that's dangerous.
It's frightening. You'd have the Front National defeating the Socialist Party instead of the Conservative Party that's already moving further to the right, it's the Republicans. It'd be a right wing versus a far right wing election. But obviously, in that circumstance, you want
all the socialists will just run to Jupe. I think
Jupe would win about 70% of the vote.
I think the thing, though, I think that the one thing that this all proves is the fact that like I have a friend who goes to Paris like all the time, and she says that there are people that go up to her and are like, "Why is Trump, so successful in America?" I think this kind of disproves the notion that Europeans are somehow better when it comes to this kind of stuff than us. Like, we have all the crazy politicians, and Europe is just like this orderly state. No, Europe is at least as much of a crazy place as us.
The thing about the Trump phenomenon, though, is at least like Marine is a politician.
Yeah,
whereas Trump is just a straight up businessman / reality TV star.
Yeah.
So in that case, you can make the argument, but as far as politics goes, as far as their fringe groups seemingly way more powerful than ours.
Yeah, I mean we have 2 parties. That's the thing is.
The 2 parties balances out.
Yeah, the 2 parties they can go
as much as I hate the 2 party system.
like they'll move to the left and right randomly for stupid reasons, but there's always going to be that limit because you don't want to be a loser forever. That's a problem. Like the conservatives, like the GOP could go as right as they want until they realize, oh wait, we're losing voters.
Except after every single election, they just diagnose the wrong thing over again.
Well, here's the thing though with the GOP is that they own the House and the Senate. Like they're like, great, we lost the presidency. I mean,
they've also gerrymandered it. So
I mean the Democrats had Congress for so long too, though. I mean, they're like, hey, the Republicans still.
The Democrats are woefully incompetent as far as running local elections, which is really funny considering that they purport to be the working class party.
Yeah.
The party of the common man.
Yeah. What you want to guys move on to the next topic after Turkey and France?
The next
topic. Do you want to talk about Trump and Pence?
Trump and Pence.
Yeah. So we were wrong. Gingrich.
We knew we were going to be wrong.
We knew we were going to be wrong though, so we were very close.
Yeah.
We were just really hoping that Christmas would happen early this year, and we would get the greatest gift of all time.
I'm still fantasizing about the Trump English election.
It would have been. I mean, the vice presidential debates. I mean, Tim Kaine could just sit there and do nothing, and then Gingrich would just say stupid
Are we
stuff.
sure that Tim Kaine can't just sit there and do nothing? Actually, we don't even know if it's going to be Tim Kaine.
Hey,
We're that bad at picking the Veeps.
okay, I saw Hillary post a photo on Twitter of her with him at a rally, like 3 days ago. I haven't seen Warren stuff recently.
It's not going to be Warren.
Yeah.
You know
Hold
what?
on,
I will
before
eat a
we
soft on
get
the
super into the Trump and Pence stuff, I
Yeah.
found a conglomerate of all the surveys about Muslims and their opinions.
All right, link them to me afterward.
It's
So
from
curious.
Breitbart.
Yeah, but these
You
are
can't cite
Breitbart.
Breitbart.
I'm not
can't-
citing
You
Breitbart.
just-
I'm citing what they're citing.
Well, where are they citing?
They posted the survey stuff.
From which organizations?
I'm gonna look into that.
Yeah, because
I found it before this.
Breitbart
There's
is
a
like
lo-
the most notoriously unreliable.
Well,
They
I'm
got
not,
Milo though.
I'm not on Breitbart. I'm on the stats they're citing.
Well, I'm not doubting the stats. I'm just doubting.
These stats have been around for a while. Widely covered poll shows that full 16% of French people have a positive attitude towards ISIS. That includes 27% of French between the ages of 18 and 24.
I think that's just trolling. I mean, like you know how like when Congress.
What's their response rate and what's their?
Yeah, there's.
Well, I'm gonna be
response
looking
rate.
into that right now.
Another thing worth noting is like, I mean, Congress hit such low numbers that North Korea had a higher popularity than Congress, but that's not true. Like nobody wants a North Korean government in America, but it had a higher approval rating than Congress.
The FBI stats. I'm trying to get onto the site, but it fucking thing was down.
Okay, I say we go on to the Pence thing.
All right, go on to the
we
Pence
can
thing. I'm gonna
talk-
find
we can
the.
We're
recap
gonna talk
this.
that in a future episode.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna come back. This is an argument that's happened again.
Yeah.
Yeah, people always make
Well,
this.
there's probably gonna be another terrorist attack in a week, and then
With
everyone
our
will be
luck.
really upset with it for 5 minutes. Then we'll forget about it after 2 weeks.
Everybody's
and then
gonna change their Facebook profile picture
to the
and then-
flag, and then say, pray for whatever country that got attacked.
What if? Okay, this is like the most fluky idea ever. What if somehow it normalizes to the point where it's meaningless?
Oof.
It fails to be successful, so they have to quit doing it because it's a waste of people. Like, man, like this isn't. We gotta like make more music videos. We're not scaring these guys.
They're gonna try to
We need
conquer
to bring
hearts and
back
minds.
this. Like, oh, we killed Jihadi John. We need another guy.
Another
Anyway,
guy.
yeah. So yeah, we'll go back to Pence. So Pence is the governor of Indiana. Indiana. I knew Indiana. I just said Louisiana.
Bobby Jindal would have been.
Yeah, he's Tea Party. He signed an anti-LGBTQ legislation thing. He's what the Tea Party wanted. That's basically
I
it.
don't get why he's such a boring figure.
He's basically He's basically Tea Party Tim Kaine.
No, I think Mike Pence is honestly more boring than Tim
That
Kaine.
is impressive. I mean,
Tim Kaine Kane's a fluent Spanish speaker.
that's true.
He was a civil rights lawyer.
This is true.
Went to Harvard Law School. He
The image of Tim Kaine.
the image of Tim Kaine, he was an effective governor. He was almost Obama's vice president in 2008.
Here's the thing, though, that the GOP argument, they're going to make the worst fallacy ever that a government can make, or a politician can make when running for office. Tim, how long has Tim Kaine been governor? Like 6 years?
He was governor for 4 years.
Yeah,
But you
the
can only be-
the recovery years. The Pence, like if Romney had been president, we would have been talking about the Romney recovery. That's what Pence is going to say. He's just going to list how many jobs were created
you know
in
what's
Indiana.
funny? They're
and
going to
it's
talk
like,
about Tim Kaine's economic record when he governed from 2006 to 2010.
yeah, like that's what they're going to say.
But-
Like, look at Tim Kaine. Look how bad he did. Look at Pence. Look how good he did. It's like, no, that makes no sense at all.
Well, economic arguments as far as governors go are generally not great unless you're talking about surpluses and deficits. But
Yeah.
surpluses and deficits matter. Like Jerry Brown, you can talk about the fact that he turned almost an impossible economic situation in California
Yeah.
into year
Yeah.
after year budget surpluses. But
Yeah. I think the biggest thing out of Pence was what you were joking about earlier, Nick. Like, will Trump get bored of Pence and just start calling him a loser? Like,
I feel like
halfway
there's a
through the
50,
election.
I feel like there's a 50-50 chance that happens by November.
those are the odds I would
There's
go
got,
with.
you know what? There's got to be betting odds on that online. I don't have to look for that.
There's got to be odds on that. That's
He's gonna. There's probably pretty good odds he gets.
What would
bored
you put the odds at?
and call on him calling him a loser?
Yeah.
probably above 50%.
I would go with
It's gonna
I
happen.
would go
for
with
sure.
just 50.
It's for sure happening after the election, though.
Supposedly, another rumor is that he waited till like the last second.
They didn't want to pick him. He was having like cold feet. He was like, ah, shit, I don't want to know.
He was hoping Christie would do something cool to convince him, which can't happen. And then
Christie's not cool.
And then Gingrich, I guess, was kind of out of the running because I guess his family didn't like him.
It's funny that Christie was the most hyped up GOP prospect 5 years ago. Just goes to show you how much an eternity politics is.
Yeah, and just the fact that like the thing with the GOP is like when they hype up their guys, it's horrible. Like the idea that this was the best field ever for primary is
the greatest GOP field in a generation.
I mean, like
vanquished by a billionaire megalomaniac.
I mean, we have Rubio, who's basically like. I mean, you can make the argument he's like Obama, like a recent senator, but like
he's not Obama. He's John Edwards.
Yeah, he's like a John Edwards. And you got Cruz, who's basically like, I don't know.
If the GOP had an Obama figure, he would be running instead of Trump right now.
Yeah, he'd be winning. They don't have anybody with like.
Actually, you could make a really dark suggestion that Cruz is the Obama figure.
That'd be something.
No. Hear me out on this. Like a darker, twisted Republican version of Obama, because immigrant father. Well, not immigrant father, but non-white father. So
his dad's an immigrant.
Well, yeah, but Obama's dad isn't an immigrant.
Yeah.
Ivy League pedigree. Lawyer. Young. Rising star in the party. Except, Obama actually seems like a guy you'd want to hang out with if you're the average voter. I don't really think there's anybody who would ever want to hang out with Ted Cruz.
Yeah, I mean, especially reading with the stuff related to his family, I can't see him as being like a guy I want to hang out with. And the other thing is,
Ted Cruz is the most punchable face in American politics.
And this guy came inches multiple times of shutting down the government in a disastrous way. I mean, the default stuff. I mean, he's still getting burned by GOP people. He's setting it up. This convention is going to be really interesting for Cruz because he's going to pretend that this is 1976 and he's Reagan.
Well, Cruz is likely the next president after Hillary.
That's horrifying.
No, it's true though.
It's true. It's true. True things can be horrifying.
The Pew Research Center said evangelicals are rallying to Trump right now.
Yeah, that's the thing, though.
That's pretty hilarious, considering that Trump is obviously contemptuous of all their positions.
Here's the thing, though, is that
but Romney had higher support, is what they're comparing.
Oh, though that's bad. The thing, though, with evangelicals is that it's actually a pretty big group, because, there's also people who just identify with a certain Christian denomination that just happens to be evangelical, and then they're just lumped in.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that with a lot of people.
This election isn't going to be won or lost on evangelicals. I don't think the only election that was ever won on evangelicals is 2004.
Oh yeah, you got to praise Karl Rove, man.
Bush just went out there and he's just like, "We're gonna ban gay marriage for sure. It's going to the Constitution." And then all of the religious right just came out of the woodwork. It's like we gotta get behind this guy. And then 10 years later, the issue was dead.
Yeah, here's a pro tip, guys. If your presidential candidate offers a constitutional amendment, 99% of the time it's a lie. The amount of presidential
one hasn't been a lie since you didn't go 100%.
I think there were people running for president 1912 who wanted to make senators directly elected.
There's that, and there's also the fact that Wilson ran on supporting a one-term 6-year one term.
Yeah.
And that passed. That was ratified for the states. And then he's like, fuck it, I don't want to do this anymore. I want my 2 terms. So it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But if that had gone through, then we would have had an election every 6 years. And we'd get a new president.
That would have changed a lot of stuff. Election.
It actually would probably be better because we spend so much of the presidency presidents in their first term are just trying to get reelected.
And the presidents in their second term are just trying to cement their legacy.
Yeah, so it's like
6 years, they wouldn't care about their legacy as much. And
we'd have people that are more inclined to govern like they actually want to.
A lot of countries, that's what Korea does, I believe. They only have one term.
So does Mexico.
Yeah. So way better. And oddly enough, the Confederate States.
The Confederacy.
Which Wilson loved. Probably
very scarily, yes.
Yes. Bizarrest thing the Confederates decided. I don't know who got that idea, but...
Well, the idea isn't exactly new. It's been around forever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not around anymore.
Yeah.
But it should be.
Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, the point is, a constitutional amendment by a president, unless it's like supported by both parties already, it means nothing. Like Hillary wants to do an end to Citizens United. That's not gonna happen. Like
No,
with the
there's
amount,
no way. Well,
like,
she can appoint justices.
she could
but-
point. Oh, okay, she could appoint justices that could later rule it. I'll believe that. But getting the states to ratify a constitution in these days is impossible.
Actually,
I mean,
Citizens United, if Hillary wins. Who am I kidding? No, it's not.
it's Hillary. We're
Yeah.
talking about Hillary.
Yeah.
I mean, like the
Hillary supports Citizens United.
the last constitutional amendment essentially did nothing. All it did was make it so that members of Congress can't get pay raises during term. That does nothing to the actual government. I mean, the only one that ever mattered was the one to drop the voting age to 18. And that didn't really change day-to-day voting, and young people barely vote. So,
Yeah.
and I don't think it ever swayed an election.
The under 18?
Yeah,
No, it definitely didn't. The election has never really been won on young people.
yeah.
You
We don't
can-
have time to vote. We
You
have
can make the
we have
argument that
lives.
Obama ran up the numbers in 2008 based on
Yeah,
young
he
people.
still, and in 2012.
Arguably, though, Obama underperformed in 2008.
if young people
Yeah.
came out to vote, Bernie might have had a shot.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just
That's actually a really hilarious.
It's because
thing.
it's because primaries have such low turnout that if you get a troll like Trump or you get a guy that's like basically catnip for young people like Bernie, you're gonna
Bernie's campaign was kind of bad. in
It was
retrospect.
He should have
horribly- yeah.
attacked the shit out of Hillary.
Here's the thing, though.
Bernie messed up not doing the email thing, but he also should have done African American outreach way sooner. Than
I think if
did.
he did African American outreach, that would have been his best plan.
He should have just hung around like major cities.
You
for
know what-
sure.
What's interesting about the party system is I'm reading this research thing done by Pew.
Uh-huh.
It says 16% of Republicans and 20% of Democrats say they almost always agree with their party policy stances. But by contrast, more than twice as many Republicans and Democrats say they never agree with the other party's
Yeah.
position.
Yeah, for sure.
So the
It's-
parties
it's-
are more just like,
it's
I'm
a
against
sport-
this other
Yeah,
party.
It's a sports team, Josh.
Yeah, you gotta just hate on the other team. I mean,
It's a sports team.
and this election is basically just that times infinity. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I was
Nobody-
saying because
a
of the
lot,
hate.
like I'd say most people voting for Hillary are voting because they don't like Trump. Like,
Most
maybe
people are voting for Trump because of Trump's personality, not his
Yeah.
policies.
or they don't like Hillary. That's it.
Yeah.
Like his policies are meaningless.
Trump doesn't have policies.
Yeah, we're in a post-policy like universe. Like,
It doesn't matter anymore.
I was talking to these like I remember in college like seeing these like graduate students in public policy, and I was like, why?
Yeah, you guys are
You're
wasting
doing
your
nothing.
careers.
You
You know,
think that anything will ever get passed?
we're in a post-policy society, and it's funny because the people that purport to care about policy, which is I see a lot about young people talking about this, support policies that could never be enacted, or would be horrifically like bad, or just plain we can't figure out what they would do
Yeah.
if they're enacted. Like all these people talking about the $15 an hour national minimum
Yeah.
wage. It's like, okay, what's the consequences for that going to be in Arkansas?
Yeah, the thing
Relative
is
to
that
California. In California, sure,
If-
let's do it. But
yeah, I think I mean like because I had to do a thing on it once, and in California it can work, especially if you do it really long term. You can
California makes
because
sense.
it's already like what is it right now 10? What?
Your money goes farther in California.
Yeah, and even in
Or
places.
no,
with-
it doesn't go farther, but your money should be. You should have more money on hand in California.
Yeah, and I mean even in places that have like lower income areas, like Bakersfield or like Lodi or something, like you're still gonna be able to commute to the higher income areas
Yeah.
or stuff, or like there's always gonna be like some stuff
But
related.
in Shreveport, Louisiana,
Yeah, like anybody, like if you can explain to me how a $15 minimum wage is gonna work in Montana without killing like as many jobs as possible, I'd love to hear it.
and
'Cause-
all the entry level positions. So
It
Yeah.
wouldn't kill the jobs, it would kill the businesses because they're already hiring as few as people as they can.
yeah, like here's the thing: is like a business will hire as efficiently as it can under current circumstances. Like it's not like a bunch of like this mythical like
we're all
labor.
moving
It's just-
towards automation for most of these jobs anyway. So
Yeah, I mean it's just gonna accelerate it. I mean you're just gonna have
Which is probably for the best, anyways.
well, if
we
it happens
need
very
is a universal basic income.
if we move slow enough, we'll be fine. That's the problem. Like, if like we found out tomorrow that like Tesla found the problems like with their like if all the driverless cars fused together and made like a super driverless car that was like 99.999% efficient and like better than a human being, that would just wreck the economy within like 5 years.
Like a
You know, that-
Voltron car.
Yeah, like it would.
I know this is off the wall, but that actually reminds me of the Mass Effect lore, where they talked about giving Krogan nuclear weapons, even though they were way not as developed as other species, and they really accelerated it, but it turned their planet into super warlike.
I can't remember that from the lore. I thought the Krogan
Ba-
did that to
the
themselves.
Krogan were used to win a war,
Well, yeah, but I thought
and they were
nuked
given weapons, but they weren't part of the stuff until that.
But I thought they nuked themselves into
Yeah,
an
because
apocalypse.
they didn't reach that point naturally.
Oh, I thought
They were
reached it
given
naturally.
all that stuff, and then after the war, they were
Yeah.
like, "Oh man, we love fucking killing everything."
Well, didn't McDonald's go on the record and say that like, if a $15 minimum wage is enacted, we're just going to just do full automation?
I don't know
Dude,
about that.
I
I
think
think for
It could work, man, because I've been to the
registers-
San Francisco McDonald's, and they
Well,
basically only need 2 or 3 workers.
yeah, you-
There's that burger restaurant that's opening in SF that's just straight all robots.
yeah,
And there's
yeah.
countries. There's like I think it was the Danish. They already they have a grocery store. I'm not sure if it's Danish or the Swedes.
That's possible.
But they have a grocery store, no employees. You go in with your phone, and then you get charged for whatever you take out.
Thing is, there's going to be so many less jobs that you're going to just have to have
Fuck
people.
the basket weavers.
I think
Fast
I think the most.
Yeah, so I want some naturally crafted.
I mean,
baskets.
I think the best system to do would be to instead of it'd be way harder to do than increasing the minimum wage, because raising the minimum wage is relatively easy. You just have to get the political support for it.
Just gotta raise it.
What you should do, what I think people should do, is just expand the earned income tax credit. That way, the people who automate more, and who use capital to supplement labor and make a ton of money, their extra taxes they're getting from not having labor will just go to the labor that still exists, and that'll make it so that employees don't have to start paying double because minimum wage just jumped up to 15
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of areas. So that way it'll be able to be a lot more manageable. I think that'd be the best way to do it. And then either you have a combined minimum wage, guaranteed minimum wage if people not working, and then people that are still able to work in a lot of these labor jobs, they should probably supplemented by, and then the tax for people that do full automation. That way people don't automate, because if automation gets really good or there are market conditions that'll support it, maybe it's just going to be a health spire. Like if McDonald's just said we're going to automate everything,
I
a
think
lot of people wouldn't care. A
Yeah,
lot of people
I wouldn't care.
I would
I would be for it.
the thing is, the people that can't find jobs, so you're going to have some sort of universal basic income at some point.
Yeah.
What these people support themselves.
What could work but will never happen is if we increase minimum wage and to maintain all these jobs and businesses that aren't like these big companies like McDonald's.
Economics
that-
will dictate that what can't work.
Yeah.
The highest paid people just take less money, but that would never happen.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's somebody's done it, and
You're trying to
that's
have
just
it-
that person being cool. But there's
Are
no
you
way
trying to
that
have an
happens
egalitarian
widespread.
corporation? Because that can't happen. You need to have a hierarchy in a corporation in order to be incentive to move up.
Well, there has
Yeah.
been a corporation that did do something like that, but that
Yeah.
guy's basically Jesus because who does that?
Yeah,
But wait,
that
guy
that's only
literally
only
was-
the CEO though. What about the
Well, he
board?
basically made this is what happened. I don't remember the company name,
there were people at the top who were mad, but eventually accepted it.
but he made everyone's salary exactly the same, and he cut his own $1 million paycheck a year to $700K
I thought
company
or
is that?
70K.
I thought he
Did you hear about that?
Yeah, he gave people. I thought he just gave everybody a raise.
He did it over a 2 to 3 year period.
Yeah, I don't think everybody's wage was the exact same. I think he just
He
made
it made it at least 70K.
Yeah, you had to make at least as much as him, which was 70K.
Yeah.
And then there were people that made more.
Right.
But this was
But
like a
in
very
order-
specialized
So that could
company.
work, but it would
It
never
can't work.
happen.
No, I don't think it can work.
You don't think that could work?
No, because
You have to value labor at what labor's worth.
not
Yeah.
only
you
that,
can,
but you need to, in order for there to be incentive for a company to grow, you need to have the people in the company have
Well,
an
his-
idea of upward mobility.
His idea was actually based in science. He was talking about psychological studies and saying these people who he looked at the happiness that he didn't arbitrarily chose 70K. He said if their income increases this much, like this is where the cutoff is for how much your happiness increased. That's like his argument was that was the point where it's peak production and happiness for money.
I've heard of this argument. I think the thing with that though is there's a lot of systems where you couldn't go up like McDonald's.
Yeah,
At one
Yeah.
McDonald's there could be one manager or shift manager then a manager, and then there's a regional manager. The steps in the hierarchy are so big that you would never be able to do a system like that, and you can
Mhm.
never really value a fry cook that high.
No.
That's how like the problem right now is like.
Hey, I was a
SquarePants.
damn good fry cook when I worked
Hey,
at
no,
McDonald's.
I'm
I
not-
put the stuff on and I hit the button and then it cooked for a minute and a half.
Did you work there when they started serving breakfast all day?
Mm-mm. That would have been awful though.
Yeah.
That sounds horrible for the employees.
I don't know why
It's
they
a
didn't just.
bitch to
They
change
just need
it.
to create a patty of sausage that's the same temperature as beef patties. I don't know why they just do that.
Eh.
That was the reason why they didn't do it earlier. They should have just came with a system.
What about I don't know. That's interesting as far as there being an optimal level of happiness as far as your salary. I have
I
to
think
look
if
more
you're
on that.
yeah.
I just think for a company to grow entrepreneurially, there needs to be options for someone to be paid more than
Right.
market
Yeah, that's
rate.
true.
Yeah.
So it's like
Because then you can't do outside hires with that kind of
exactly.
system.
I would be pretty pissed off if like, oh, my salary can't increase. I'm gonna go get paid. Go.
You have to really rely on talent evaluation and getting the girl in your company.
Yeah, I'm gonna go work for this company that's gonna pay me more for the quality of my work. So
Yeah.
It has
or
yeah,
my experience in the field.
It'd have to be in a super established
Yeah.
company for that
It's-
to
yeah.
do.
Yeah,
You
the
can't
problem-
start a
and
business model like that.
and a company that's prestigious.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the thing though is that the fact that over time like labor has been devalued because of automation. I don't think there's a way where in a lot of companies you could pull that off. Like in a lot of tech companies, a system like that would be I think easier.
Mhm.
Like relatively because like they're programmers with what do actors have agents, they're programmers
They have
who have
agents.
agents.
They
It's
have
a real
agents.
thing. No, you can read about it. There's some weird stuff going
No,
on.
no, I just like your
Like
inflection
that.
for it.
Yeah, and like it's for stuff like that where like there's so few programmers out there compared to the demand, you can pull stuff like that. But for like a place that makes sandwiches, it's gonna get automated. Like I went to a Subway last week.
Even complicated stuff is getting automated. My dad, he owns his own construction business, and he's saying he sees automation way more now than ever.
Oh yeah, there's houses that can create they can pour concrete themselves and make concrete based houses through like basically really big 3D printing. If they could figure out how to do that with a wood like substance, they could make a house robot in like 5 years, and it'll just build a house in like a week.
In
with no
developed
labor.
countries, manual labor will be dead in like 100 years.
Yeah, at least,
It'll all be done by robots.
yeah,
Everything's going to eventually be done by robots.
yeah, and I think
Which means in a system like that, we'll eventually have to move to a socialist type society.
well,
that's the funny thing is that socialism is seemingly inevitable
Yeah.
on some level
Yep.
because
Yeah.
like, and it's not even that it's like
although
a bad thing.
well, here's the thing though. Socialism implies
It's kinda
ownership
scary
of
to-
ownership of the means of production. I don't think
you might move. You know what?
You
we're
would have-
moving towards a post scarcity society.
yeah. I mean,
So it's like
but
if
this
all
is-
resources aren't scarce,
but this is
then
still a ways down because we don't know.
I'll be dead by then.
Yeah. This
Like,
show
let's
is
get
basically just
Sam
an excuse to talk about Nick's morality.
Mortality, you mean? My morality's
Nick's gonna
Right.
die, everyone. And it's
Yeah.
gonna be before us bearing accidents.
Yeah, here's the thing with automation is we're not gonna
Probably
fully
be in a
know it
car.
till we get there
Might
because
be in a
like,
car.
but I think we're gonna accept it pretty easily.
I think
I-
that's at least your second highest chance of dying.
Dude, I just gotta live long enough for the self-driving car to become a thing,
Mm-hmm.
which I probably should.
Yeah, oh, yeah, self-driving car is realistic. Other stuff though will take a little longer. I
The
think
self-driving
My
car-
dad has such an old man opinion about self-driving cars, and his argument against self-driving cars was that they could make all the mistakes people make. I was
That's
like,
hilarious. You know, self-driving cars are like
no, I
the
said
problem
that.
with them is that humans on the road make mistakes.
He was like, and he's also worried about them being hacked and then stuff like
they're
that,
not like
or
Who's
like,
gonna hack a
or break it
self-driving
down.
car?
He's thinking like regular computers. He's like, what if they just fucking reboot or something, or crash, like
I
the
mean,
computer system.
they're not connected to an internet network. That would be impossible. They use like
I know. I
little
explained that
tiny,
to him.
yeah.
He doesn't
So,
know how computers work.
You want to jump to the next topic because I think we've kind of
You want to talk about the Knicks?
we were going all over the place. What time are we at?
Well, I want to talk about Phil Jackson in particular for the Knicks because, well, right now we have the Knicks. They're being, well, what time are we at? We are at, it's not live anymore, but, I'm not live. Okay, let's see. We are at 57 minutes.
Okay, so
All right,
we can do like 20.
You want to talk about the New York Knickerbockers?
I'm going to talk about Phil Jackson in particular because right now Knicks fans are super hyped and they shouldn't be, but that's doesn't matter. They're fans. They just don't want their team to be bad. And then the rest of the people who like them like their name value because they have Derrick Rose and Noah. And if you put that team in a time capsule
Not to
where
mention
Melo
Melo.
didn't come off his worst year, Rose didn't tear his ACL. Noah hasn't been dealing with a bunch of injuries the last few
Plus, you
years.
got the next big thing,
And
Kristaps Porzingis.
Porzingis is very good. I like Porzingis a lot, actually.
Yes.
But that being said, Phil Jackson is just showing that he's being really impatient right now, and like he's already putting the onus on the players. He's doing what Al Davis did for the Raiders, which is I got the talent here, so if it doesn't work, it's on the players.
That's just such a shitty way to manage a team.
Because all right, so they're gonna be bad. They replaced Robin Lopez played 82 games and he was above average for his position that year.
He's a great, solid starter.
And then they replace him with Noah, who played 29 games last year. And then we extrapolate that he was one of the worst players in the league last year. Maybe that was injuries. Maybe he won't be one of the worst players. But it's hard to replace a guy who played every single game. And then you have Rose. He's better than Jose. That's your argument. But Rose was awful last year. In fact, Rose had a worse impact on the win ratio of the Bulls than Jose on the Knicks just because he had a higher usage. Jose minimizes damage by not being used as much. So
And you know Rose is going to want the ball.
Rose will absolutely want the ball because
he's fucking Derrick Rose.
Yeah. And then Melo, everyone's like, oh, he's a much more well-rounded player. He's transitioned into a well-rounded player. Well, it's like, that's true. He has transitioned into a more well-rounded player. But the issue with that is that being well-rounded doesn't mean he's better than he was. He's coming off his worst shooting year 2 years in a row. Now it's a trend now. It's not just like variation.
Is Carmelo Anthony still a star?
I mean, advanced stats have never put him in like a top 10 range ever. But
No,
people have always rated him there. And in production,
those Nuggets jerseys were sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Nuggets always put a good team around him. So he had the benefit of the perception of winning.
Those Nuggets.
Even in those rookie years, some people were arguing that Melo was a better player than LeBron.
Oh, that's
and
very
it was going to be. Yeah, that was
they
common.
made the playoffs.
Yeah, because the Nuggets were good. But LeBron was, if you watched the game, LeBron was better. If you looked at stats,
LeBron almost willed the Cavs to the playoffs that year as a fucking rookie.
Yep.
With Ricky Davis as the second best player.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So, but Phil Jackson basically he hasn't really done much good for the Knicks. He hasn't made their prospects much brighter for them in the future. Because
I love the argument that he drafted Porzingis, and it's like,
well, that's like one thing, but Porzingis has a lot of hype around him, and I do like him, but it's not official that he's a great. Like he had a really bad second half of the year last year.
Yeah, he did.
And
I think
he's fun. He's a nice guy. He played really well, and then he kind of hit a wall. That's probably just variation within the season, but we don't know if he's going to improve on that. We don't know.
I certainly hope he does.
I like Porzingis.
I want the Knicks to be good. I just hate the fact that they.
Well, he's also talking about winning a championship, which is increasing.
Wait, what?
Well, he said.
Well, I mean, he should be, but
he obviously, but that's what has hyped.
Yeah.
A lot of NBA players know when they're on bad teams. On the open court, when they've talked about when they know they're on a team full of shitty players. Sometimes coaches, a coach talked about this in the NBA once, where he was like, he was on the bus with his team, and he said, half of you will be gone by the end of this year.
Who said that?
I forget.
I want to know who said that.
But basically, well, it was in the context of he's like, we're going to win a championship eventually, this franchise, but most of you won't be here.
That's hilarious.
And that was what happened. So, like, there's definitely teams that know they suck, but Phil Jackson has been hyping up the team. He's calling Porzingis. We're in win now. We're winning now. We got Rose. We have you. We have Melo. We have Courtney Lee. Courtney Lee is such a massive upgrade over Aaron Aflalo. This is what a Knicks fan said. He's like, he will hit shots when it counts, unlike Aaron Aflalo, but their stats are basically exactly the same. So you have to count on Noah being as good as he was in 2011, 2012, and same with Rose. And then you have to count on Melo, his trend down. What?
What if I told you that a new rose may bloom in the right garden?
No.
Do fans just inherently willfully ignore stats?
It's New York Knicks.
Well,
are there fans
but it's the New York Knicks.
Okay, since I browse every sports forum and every team's sports forum every year, this is what happens every offseason. every offseason for every team in every league, every team except for a few who have obviously gotten worse, go, how could we not be better next year when we took away Y and added X, or the natural improvement of said player, without ever looking at the context of other teams' improvements or their players? Like, what can this player really improve on? What do you think is going to propel them to make your team a lot better? So basically, this is happening on sports forums and fans where they're like, dude, look at our shitty players and now look at the players we have now. So clearly we are a much better team. But where do the Knicks really fit in the East? Where like the Pacers are better than them, obviously. The Cavaliers are, the Raptors are,
Celtics.
the Celtics are, the Hawks are, the Hornets are.
The Magic probably not.
No, I don't like the Magic scene. They'll probably win as many games or more than they did last year, but they're messing up too. Their owner is like 90 years old. He's been impatient. That's why they
Got the
fired.
Bucks.
The reason the Magic fired Stan Van Gundy was because they wanted to keep Dwight because their owner is really old and he wants to win a championship before he dies.
It's funny because they wouldn't have even won a championship with Dwight.
Yeah, they could have.
No, they couldn't have.
Yeah,
Not
they
with the
could have.
Heat.
They went to the finals. They're really impatient. If they were more patient,
Well, Stan Van was fired in when? 2011, 2012?
Dwight should have just rode the coattails of Stan Van Gundy, man. He fucked up. He didn't recognize a great thing when he had it.
Stan Van Gundy.
And now he's only had mediocre coaches
I
since
think
then.
Stan Van Gundy is
Although-
actually an underrated coach. Like
No.
I don't see enough hype for that guy. He's great.
I don't know. I think when people talk about coaches, everyone knows Stan Van Gundy is really awesome.
Stan Van Gundy's for sure top 5, but you never like. I don't know. I feel like people put Doc ahead of Stan Van Gundy.
I don't know. I think Stan Van Gundy has a more positive connotation when people talk about him. I'd see people harp on Doc's flaws.
It might be popularity too.
Well, Stan
like
Van Gundy
media.
is at very least a much better GM than Doc.
Doc is a horrible GM.
Well, if you're a player who played against him or you played with him, you're a
Hey,
guy he wants.
Most
Yeah,
mates. Most mates.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. That's another example. Most Bates played against him in the playoffs. Oh.
Doc the GM is like he can't wait for long range mode jumpers. Try to reignite that second unit's offense. That's gonna be funny.
A lot of, it's been talked about a lot by other coaches in the league. Like Jeff Van Gundy's talked about it and Stan Van Gundy talked about it. And right now, owners and people get impatient and they're not willing to wait for the good product. So what happens is you have these GMs who are forced to make less than ideal moves because they don't know if they're going to be there in 5 years.
The funny thing is, if we relate that back to Phil Jackson, I don't think James Dolan really gives a shit about.
James Dolan wants to win.
He
James
wants to
Dolan
win, but
cares.
he's definitely more patient than Phil is.
Dolan's too patient, actually. He's going to let Phil Jackson not do anything for the next 5 years.
You know what's
Well,
gonna be funny?
and Phil Jackson will just be like, I don't know what's going wrong. The triangle is awesome. The players I have are awesome.
Triangle.
I have the best players. I have the best system. And
I think New York is well, not so stealthy, but I think that's a Westbrook destination for sure. It's not going to be a contending team.
Wait, what? Hold on. I missed everything you just said.
I think that New York might be gifted.
No way. That's not happening.
You don't think
Westbrook's
we're-
not going to New York.
Where do you think he'll go?
Especially, hold on, because Rose is coming off the books next year, so you replace Rose with Westbrook. That would be the idea. But the Knicks are going to suck. He's not
Yeah.
going there.
Lakers are going to suck too.
Yeah, so he probably won't go to the Lakers unless the Lakers can sell him. Because the Lakers have plenty of cap room for 2 guys. Plenty of cap room for 2
I feel
guys.
like it's easier to build a team in New York than it's like being indicated as long as you have a cornerstone
The
player.
problem is Westbrook's not going to New York. That's not going to happen.
All right.
He has more. He's from UCLA. He's from the LA
Yeah, it
area.
doesn't matter though.
So if we're looking at 2 bad teams in the context,
Westbrook loves fashion.
yeah, exactly. LA, UCLA.
New
He
York's
loves.
bigger for fashion.
Yeah, but he went to UCLA for a reason because he
Yeah, he's
really
from
likes
LA though.
Yeah, so he stayed in LA. So that means he must really like LA. Usually when people go to college, they go
Or,
to the opposite area.
Or
Yeah, then they don't join. getting on a team, same area. That's
But he's
Well-
like, I'm in LA. I'm going to school in LA.
Well, there's prestige factor playing for UCLA.
I think there's 3 destinations for Westbrook.
Throw him out there.
I think Boston is definitely going to be a team he looks at.
I
think
so,
San
too.
Antonio is going to be a team he looks at.
I don't know about San Antonio, but okay.
And I think the Lakers are a distant third.
I think Boston, because Boston, if they do a trade, Boston only really needs to get rid of picks. They don't really have to get rid of players. So the only thing I'm kind of interested in is seeing Westbrook's, how he meshes with Isaiah Thomas. Could you move Westbrook to shooting guard?
Yeah, you can. You can definitely play him off the ball. I think he'd be better off the ball.
I
I
want to
think
see
he needs
Westbrook as shooting
more
guard.
back cuts. I think he's so fast and athletic that he can just run around and like
It doesn't
he
matter.
could
that
be
he's
like the
6'3".
dunking version of Redick, really, because Redick runs so much a game and he shoots a bunch of threes. Westbrook can kind of do that, except without the 3 part, because he shoots way too many threes because he's controlling the ball off.
Yeah.
So you run him off the ball, and he just runs around all day off the screens. You just set him screens constantly, and he'll get a lot of open layups.
I really want to see that, actually. That'd be a really fun team.
And that's what the Spurs would do. The Spurs would put the ball in the low post right now because that's how they're running their team. They're working through LMA. They're working through Leonard on the wing, and that's
Yeah.
like that's a game they have. So what would happen is the Spurs are a fake slow-paced team because they have a slow pace, but what they do is they run the ball up the court really quickly.
They should be faster next season.
Well, they run the ball up the court really quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and then they run about 3 or 4 plays. If the first one doesn't work, then they move to the next one and then the next
They're
one.
very methodical.
So, yeah, they're methodical. So they're running a lot of plays, and then you have some teams that are slow paced because they're slow. Like
Yeah.
the Knicks were like that. That's one of the biggest problems with the Knicks offense is what they would do is Melo would walk the ball up the court.
Watching Knicks' offense was awful last year.
Melo would walk the ball up the court, and they would start their offense with 15 seconds on the shot clock, which leaves them about 1.5 plays. So you're not going to get a lot of awesome shots out of that. You're not going to that's not going to happen. But the Spurs, they'll start their offense with like 20 seconds on the shot clock, but they'll take a while because they want to look for the best shot.
You know, the Spurs with Westbrook versus the Warriors with Durant would be a very fun West rivalry.
Yeah, that would be. It'd definitely be. A
But
good rivalry.
obviously, I want him to go to Celtics because I want the West to be ours.
Dude, as long as everyone stays healthy, if
Yeah.
Durant's legs aren't a problem ever, Warriors are gonna run this shit.
They have to have
It's
good
gonna be Laker dominance type stuff like with Shaq and Kobe. It's
yeah.
gonna be at least 3 titles.
I mean, I don't know much, but yeah, I mean, they got to get good injuries for that to.
At least 3
injuries
them.
would be the issue here.
Yeah, but I mean, like that's just nature, basically.
Praying to God.
I guess you can.
Thank you, Kevin Durant.
The Magic's. I guess you can't blame the GM because the owner's 90. He wants to win. He's gonna die soon.
Yeah.
It's exactly what screwed the Raiders. Is Al Davis probably knew he was gonna die soon. He's like, I gotta fucking just give out the money.
That's a horrible. I mean, if you're thinking of.
I love how you're leveraging a ton of fan happiness just for yourself.
Well, here's the thing.
But it's
though,
your
is-
thing. It's your
Here's
thing.
the thing, though. Like, obviously, these people have a lot of money if they can afford a team.
Well, yeah,
The
because
thing is,
a lot of them run at a lot of the owners run at a negative. Like a lot of the owners, this is like a bragging right.
Yeah, but like the
Yeah.
amount of liquidity you have to have in the team and the amount of value, like it'd be like throwing your house around basically for a normal person.
Well, it's like
Like, even
it's
for
like a super serious hobby for a lot of owners. That's
Yeah. but like
what I've read is that when you buy a team, they're telling you this is not a source of income. This is a really serious hobby.
oh okay, if
A lot of owners do treat it like a source of
And
income.
that's
I
what
would-
that's what a lot of people say about this publicly funded stadiums because it's like
yeah,
this is
those
our
are horrible.
thing. We don't have a lot more extra money. I mean, some owners do obviously, like,
Yeah,
but
I think
Our
it's not-
owners,
it's not
for
too
instance.
bad.
our owners,
I
light
think
The
years
Clippers
later,
the Clippers owner too now.
will Ballmer.
Yeah,
I want them to move to Anaheim.
I think the with teams.
I think that'd be good for them.
Yeah,
I mean-
because Anaheim comes out in sports.
I don't think
Does.
Clipper fans would be upset with that, but I don't know. I'd have to ask
There's a lot of Orange County Clippers fans.
I think though the weird thing with ownership is I wouldn't think of it as a source of income. I would think of it as like you're trying to up the value of the team.
I
You wouldn't think of it in income. You would think of it in just an asset that you're trying to get value up in, not necessarily to get revenue flow
Well, you have to
higher.
think of it from a competitive aspect because you know a lot of them do try to increase the value, but most of them just don't have any intention of ever selling it because owning it is the prestige.
Oh, okay, but I mean,
Owning it is like
has any
it's
team
like
ever
something
been,
that's only valuable because you have it.
yeah, but like, has they ever been inherited before?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's narrated all the time.
people
really?
owners die.
Oh,
It's like it's
Mark
a
Oh,
legacy.
they're inheritable.
Yeah, it's a legacy. You have to be in like you have like
Can you imagine if they weren't
so,
heritable?
Mark Cuban was talking about how you have to be in the in club of the league to even try to almost buy a team too. He said he tried to get a baseball team. He talked about this, I think, and he said basically it's really hard, even if you're super filthy rich, to even get considered to
Wait,
be able to buy a
This
team.
is a stupid question.
That's why it's so prestigious to have one.
This is a dumb baseball question. If there are 30 teams and like corporations can own teams of baseball, why don't they just make 2 teams and sell them for like an insane amount of money if it's so hard to get a team? Just be like, great, we'll sell 2 teams for $10 billion. Boom.
Because you need to have an ownership group already set up in order to expand.
Yeah,
And-
what the fuck? Cuban wants a
Well,
team.
owners basically what you can't just create teams right away. You have to really be careful about it because you lose money creating teams first.
Yeah.
It's like when you produce a console and put it out. You're not.
Oh
making,
yeah. Like you're not gonna. You need good players, or it's like good games basically.
You always lose money. Like hockey, this is unprecedented for sports because most sports when they expand 2 teams, but
But hockey they're doing 1.
because it's really hard for hockey financially. So creating a team is really taxing
And
on
they're
them.
going to fucking Vegas.
I mean, it makes sense.
Vegas.
It makes sense to me because the biggest problem with building a new team is just stadium issues, and Vegas literally has like a great boxing arena that you could just convert into hockey. And they even said this is like made for hockey.
Well, in all
What they
that-
need to do is for hockey, they want the team to be successful. So right now, I'm not too versed in hockey, but I've heard that what they're trying to do is make it so they have a lot of advantages, so the team will be good at first, so they develop the fan
I mean,
base.
hockey's really fluky. So I mean,
Yeah, it
they
is
just
super
need a couple.
fluky.
Well, you know
But
what?
they
They
just
just
All
got-
they need is a couple good players from like
No,
like an initial round.
hockey's a lot of depth, right?
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
you need
because
depth.
you
It's not
replace
just
because
the
players-
players,
can't just
players
give
are
them-
coming on.
Oh
and off
yeah,
all the
you
time.
replace all the time.
Now,
Hey, power play, man.
now, I think Vegas is going to have a great home ice advantage, though.
Oh god.
The
it's
night
gonna-
before, everyone's just going to go out, get wasted, and then show up the
Oh,
next
yeah,
day.
It's a
right.
transplant
They're good-
town though, so it's kind of like, are they going to be able to develop this consistent fan base in Vegas? It's such a transplant area.
Well, here's the thing though, is like
I feel like there's going to be a lot of people bandwagoning the Vegas team
If they're good.
if they're good.
I think the thing though is that like there's a lot of cities in the U.S. where a lot of people are from other areas. Like
Atlanta, horrible sports town.
yeah, or like I mean,
Horrible.
They're
Well,
a baseball
baseball,
town.
baseball,
I mean,
they're good.
I
They're
know
a baseball
people,
town.
For football and for basketball, they're it's bad.
but I mean like
But
L.A.
luckily
There's
they're in a dome, so their sound's pretty
But I
good
mean-
still.
L.A. There's like people from everywhere. So when
I don't
like
get why their
football
football
moved
isn't-
out,
I don't get why you don't see more Falcons fans.
Because of college football.
yeah, it's the South, bro.
Fucking
That's a-
college football.
That's why the NFL waited so long
College
to go
football's
into the
so
South.
fucking boring, and the refs are so much worse. Like,
Oh
you-
yeah, I know.
I've watched college football games. You know, I've seen them, and the ball placement is so much worse than our refs. They're just
My
they're
dad prefers college football.
that's
it's like-
horrible.
I want to see kickers miss routine kicks.
They love the pageantry. They love how it's actually a lesser quality of competition.
If you
They
yeah,
care more. But
if you saw
they're
me watch
shittier.
Cal games, there's so many bad rep plays that even I'm like just yelling at the TV, like no, just go home.
There are some pretty amazing
there's some-
things that happen in college
and there's some
football,
of the
though.
There's
dumbest.
amazing things that happen in every sport, man.
Yeah, but like
That's true.
yeah.
But
You can find amazing things in every sport.
There
I mean,
was-
I simulated NBA sports on NBA 2K, and there's some pretty crazy moments.
I remember we were watching that one game.
I forget which team that they hit like 5 threes to come back and win, man. It's like 1 in a million shot. I got to watch it happen in a 2K simulation.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
the worst thing I ever saw in college football was my first year at Berkeley against UCLA. They literally had to make like a yard, and they had to they had like 1 or 2 yards they had to make, and they were only down 2 points. They tried to throw it in on like a 4th down, and it got intercepted. And it's like all you have to do is kick the ball. You said they kicked the ball.
That's just bad play calling.
Like, I was
That's
like,
horrible play
That's
calling. if
amazingly
true.
bad play calling.
Okay, I think we're an hour 30 in, so it's almost time to wrap up. You guys have any closing thoughts on anything?
The Knicks are going to be garbage, and the world is on fire.
I need to learn more about basketball because I didn't talk a lot. And if we're gonna do NFL in the future, I'd love to hear about your guys' thoughts on the LA Rams because they're
There's a
The
lot
LA
of
Rams are gonna
speculation
be
that they
really
traded
bad.
for the quarterback because they moved to LA. And
I can see that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's
I know,
also-
totally.
there's also
totally.
speculation that that's why they kept Jeff Fisher, so they'd have a semi-competitive team.
Jared Goff is the luckiest motherfucker on the entire
Hey
planet.
man, what if he is a franchise quarterback? What if
I
it's,
would laugh.
No. He
No,
could be. He could be. But
I like
all
that they
I'm saying
Redskins
is,
themselves though.
dude is good looking, and he's the quarterback for the LA Rams. And he's
I
our
like
age.
I like the trade that happened because it's almost come full circle where they rip off the Redskins. You know, the red RG3 did look good before the injury, but then his mechanics.
I love how
started-
people call RG3 like a bust. It's like that's
That's
just
so unfair.
unfortunate.
That was his second ACL tear on that same leg.
That's so
It's
unfortunate.
it's injuries. It is technically a bust, but
Yeah. I think the thing with him is that Cal's defense. I mean, it's college football, so you know.
I don't know.
RG3 is a good guy too.
Cal's defense was literally one of the worst in the league. The fact that he even won any games just means it was all him.
the
No, Jared-
Redskins did handle his first year poorly though. Where they made
Yeah.
him like a god, they propped him up, and they let his dad in the locker room. Who lets a parent in a locker
That's a
room?
bad idea.
I
It's-
remember Jared or RG3 back in his first year. Everyone was like, "This guy is an all-time great already." It's like, wow. You know what? It's not all that different from Odell Beckham. RG3 was like Odell Beckham from like the early 2010s,
Yep.
except I think Odell Beckham will hopefully last longer and not tear his ACLs. So
Well, he's been pretty good. He's been pretty good for the Giants.
Yeah.
I don't think Jared Goff's gonna hopefully
I think Jared Goff
have
will
too
be
much
good.
injuries. I mean, the thing is, his defense was so bad.
I don't
he's been
watch
sacked-
college, so
The defense was legendarily bad. He's been sacked so much. He
Well,
can't be
we
injury
know
proof.
for-
We know
we
that
know
for a
it-
fact.
in advanced
He's a-
football stats that there's no correlation to quarterback performance and defense performance. And we also know that there's no correlation between how good the running back is and how good the quarterback is. Those are myths.
Wait,
It's
Here's
like
my-
protection in baseball.
Wait,
Here's like
wait,
my one
wait,
argument for.
there are people that think the running back's great.
If you're running back, it opens up the passing game is the argument, which hasn't actually been shown the case.
Oh,
I think no. Here's my only argument for why I think he could be good. Is that his defense was so bad. He's been hit enough times that he knows how to get hit.
Wait, I don't understand that, Trevor. I think
So at
I think
least-
you're speaking backwards.
I want him to. He
No,
knows how to get hit.
No. He knows how to get hit, so he
But
won't get
his
injured as
defense
much.
being bad has nothing to do
No,
with
no,
whether
no,
he's
no,
hit
Are
or
you
not.
trying to say that he's resilient under pressure?
No, you're not understand. Let me start over. I'm saying that he's less likely. I think very bad guess that he's less likely to get injured because he got hit so many times.
That's not how injuries work.
It's not.
No. You know what? The thing about injuries is that they're a lot more random than people think. Everyone says this guy's injury prone or this guy's injury prone. That's not really the case, especially for
just shitty
professional
luck.
athletes. Is if you ask people in that profession, if you ask trainers and doctors, they would say the vast majority of injuries comes down to luck.
Yeah, Derek Rose just got really fucking unlucky. Same thing with RG3.
There's no no one's most people. If you're in the NBA, you've already weeded out the people who have massive injury concerns. If you're in the NFL, you already weeded out those concerns. If basically it's just whether you're lucky or not a lot of the times. I mean, there's some people with no cartilage in their knees, and that's obviously an issue. But injuries are you don't want. Sometimes it's like, oh man, that player was injury prone, but he stopped being injury prone. I wonder how that happened. Well, it's because he wasn't. It was just bad luck.
Okay, I don't know anything.
Yeah, if you ask trainers, it's like, man, fuck these guys who think they know things about injuries.
I don't.
I know.
I was just.
I know you weren't making a comment on.
I was
injury
just
stuff.
speculating based on a very dumb correlation. I was aware of my
Especially
idea.
with knees in sports. It's like
Oh, man,
any guy
knees.
can just fucking fuck his knee up and then it's over.
Not all knees are made the same, Josh.
All knees
It's
are
a-
structurally shit.
It's the thing.
All of them.
It's a thing that
No one has good knees when they get older.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, I know people who backpack down the coast for even when they're in their 50s, and then they hit once they hit a certain age, it's like, oh,
I feel like that probably wore out their knees even more.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was like once. It wasn't like
Basketball players have fucked up backs in these. So I think that's it for today. I hope you guys
Thank
enjoyed
you,
watching.
everyone.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Love you guys. You're all great.
Awesome.